Cross Stitch Lady. Welcome to my craft room. A very, very happy new year to everyone. I'm recording this on January 2nd. So we had a good Christmas. We also had a calm new year, but it was a nice new year because we got to watch some just some old movies and then toasted in at midnight. And so here we are starting 2025. I can't believe I'm saying that. But thank you for joining me. Thank you to all my current subscribers. Thank you for the ones who just saw this video out of curiosity and decided to click on it. So I really appreciate your being here as well. This one is going to be a tutorial. I started a 5-part series on simple specialty stitches, and I've got 4 parts done. So this is going to be number 5. And this is what I would call probably the simplest of all of the simple specialty stitches. We're going to do what's called the satin stitch. So if this is Tuesday afternoon for you, you can use this as a video just to stitch with and listen to some fun stitchy talk. Or if you are a beginner or a newer stitcher, or maybe you haven't stitched in a while, or maybe you've heard of the satin stitch but you've never actually done it, then this is the video for you to learn. Now, I'm going to try this on a few different fabrics. I'm going to work some on Aida. I'm going to do it also on an even weave and also on a linen, the linen was a little hard for me to find because I'm more of an even weave person. So I thought, do I even have any linen? I thought I was going to have to maybe get some, but I actually found some linen in a really cool color. But I found a very nice contrasting shade for the floss. And so hopefully that will solve that problem of the darker color that I'm going to use for that. But I'm going to show you different strands to use as well, because with the satin stitch, depending on what fabric you use and depending on how many strands you use, it can have a very different look. So there will be timestamps below so that if you just want to look at it done on a particular fabric, you'll be able to click right on that. And I will also do a comparison at the end and show you all 3 fabrics, and you'll be able to see the different stitches just so you can kind of get a bird's eye view of everything and see what you like the most. This will be, of course, like I said, it'll be number 5 in the series. I will post links to numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 so that in the description so that you can access those easily as well. I will also have my contact information below. I'm back on Instagram after a while of being off. So I do have a few posts there, not very many, but I will put my email address and my Instagram down there. So if you'd like to contact me, please do so. If you have any questions for me, I'm getting more regular about checking that email because I have another email that I use as well. I'm kind of getting myself in the habit of checking more, especially the junk. It tends to want to send a lot of things to junk, as you all are probably familiar with. So like I said, if you want to contact me, you can use my email. You can go check me out on Instagram. And of course, if you're not a subscriber and you like what you see here, I would love for you to click that like button and hit subscribe, and also hit the little bell notification if you want to know each time that I put a new video up. Okay, now, as we're getting started, I did not realize that my video recording now has the pause button, as I've seen other people have realized as well. That was not there before, and I had to use my editing tool to piece everything together if I had to do separate videos. So it's really nice to see the pause button, and I haven't used it yet. I think that came with the last update because suddenly it's there, and I guarantee it wasn't there before. So my husband convinced me. He said, the pause button's there. And it's like, oh, so it is. So we're going to try it out because we're going to switch to table view so that I can actually show you the satin stitch. So let's give it a try. Okay, so one thing I have learned about the pause button is that if I'm switching from the camera view of me to tabletop, it doesn't work because when I pause it, there's no button for me to be able to flip the view of the camera so that it's looking at the table. However, as I am switching from like this stuff and going to my linen, my even weave, since it's going to stay in tabletop view now, I will be able to utilize the pause button so that I only have 2 video segments to edit together, which now it's not a big deal since I'm used to my editing program, but that will limit the number that I have to piece together. So that will be a good thing. Okay, so we're going to start with, it's a scrap piece of Aida that I have. This is a 14 count Aida. And I'm going to use this pink because it'll show up really well. And it's going to show up well on the other fabrics that I have too. So I'm going to go ahead and start. What the satin stitch is, it's simply a straight line. That's all it is, just a straight line. It's very simple. But again, depending on the fabric you use, which most people tend to use either an even weave or a linen. They don't tend to do it on Aida, but you can do it on Aida depending on what look you want. So let's start with this one. We're going to start with 2 strands. I'm just going to pick a random hole here, and then I'm going to, well, let me pull that through a little bit, jarring the camera here. Okay, now that I've knocked the camera around a little bit. Okay, so I'm starting here, and depending on, like if you're doing the border for a sampler or something like that, you decide how long you want it. Typically, you would count up, like here we're going to count up 1, 2, 3, 4. Beginners may call them holes. They're called threads. So I'm just going to put my needle through here, and then I'm going to pull just like that. And there's my line. Okay, let me flip this thing around. My camera's a little closer than I thought. Okay, secure my thread there. Okay, so I've made that line. And now what I'm going to do is I'm trying to look through the camera and do this so it's a little awkward. I'm going to go through this hole, maybe. Okay, so this is the hole that's right beside it. You see it's right beside that. I'll pull that snug, and then I'm going to come in up here to this hole right next to the top one. Okay, so now it looks like we've got stripes, right? Now the reason they call it a satin stitch is because when you're stitching with it, of course, people will tell you there are, you just want to be careful with your tension and just with different fabrics, like with even weave, it looks more like a piece of satin because they're all kind of together. So this one, because our threads on Aida are farther apart, which makes it easier to see the holes, which is why a lot of people like to use Aida, but we're at a disadvantage here with the satin thread or the satin stitch because you're going to have a little more space there. Now this is with 2 strands. So let me do a couple more just so we get the feel of it. So now you're going to come back down. You don't go back and forth. So I'm not going to start up here. I always come back down to this one. Always come back to the bottom there. And now I'm going to go back to the top. Okay, there's 4. And then we'll do 1 more. And then go up here at the top, and we'll stop there. Okay, so that's with 2 strands. So I'm going to stop the floss here, and then I'm going to try it with another number of strands. So how do we end this thing? Okay, so if I want to stop, I need to switch colors or something. There's what my back looks like. So all I'm going to do is run my needle through there. I'm not going to pull really tight, okay? And typically what I do, and I don't know that everyone does it this way, but I'll go back through one more time just to secure it, but I don't pull tight. I do not. It looks like I might be pulling tight because that one's coming in a little bit, but I am not. I'm not pulling tight at all. So I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut that off. And that will be secure enough. Now, some people might do it differently. That's how I do it if I'm doing the satin stitch. And, you know, of course, you're going to have stitches all around it too. Now, if you're unsure about it, then you may want to go through a third time. But as long as you don't pull really hard, it's going to be okay. So if I come back to the front, there it is. It looks just fine. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to practice with my pause button, and I'm going to load up, let's load up 4 strands. Let's double it up, see what happens. All right. Okay. That pause button is working. Awesome. Hey, when you've been doing this for a long time and you haven't had the pause button, it's really exciting when you do. Okay, let me shift the camera just a little bit there. Okay. So let's try 4. So I'm going to come in, let's see, let me just skip over a few here. So let's see, let's start right here. Okay. Now, I'm going to perform the same stitch, but now I have doubled the number of strands, which means I should get more coverage when I'm doing this. So try not to bump the camera. It was a lot closer. The camera was a lot closer than my hand was thinking. So I'm just going to hold that tail right now. Okay, now, same stitch, okay, and a lot more strands to deal with. Well, now they want to get all tangled up. Okay, let's give this a try here. Okay, so I'm going to go up to this hole. So I started in the bottom. I'm going to go up through this hole. Okay, now there's my first one. Now we can already see, I'm going to pull it down. There we go, just a little bit. We can already see that it's covering the threads a little bit better. So let me go down to the next one. Here's the second one. Okay. So I'm coming down. And the only problem is then you start getting threads wanting to tangle. So then you have to pull them back out. Looks like I've got a knot going on here. So let me pull this back out. And that's the thing with multiple threads. You've got big knots that don't want to come out. They're being stubborn. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. All right. I think I got that straightened out there. Okay. Now, the only bad thing is I had to pull on it a little bit, so it's pulled that hole a little bit, but we're just doing a demonstration here, so it's okay. All right, so I'm going to come up to this hole right across from the first one. You just want to be careful as you're pulling it through, because with that many strands, it is easier to get them all tangled up. So you just want to, like, I start untwisting a little bit as I go. Okay, so let me go down to this next one. So here's my third stitch. I'm coming back down to, adjacent right here. So there's the first one, second one, here's the third one. Remember, I'm not going back and forth. I start down at the bottom each time and go to the top, bottom, top, bottom, top. So now we're going to the top. Okay, actually not adjacent, parallel. I'll use my terms correctly here. Okay, now back down. Okay, you want to pull them not quite as taut as I have, because I've pulled these holes a little bit, but just, just enough tension, not too tight. Okay, there's 4, and then we're going to do one more, and then go back up to the top. Okay, now we see there's a difference. Okay, this is 2 strands and this is 4 strands. Okay. All right. So that gives a little more coverage. There's still some gapping, you know, you still see the fabric through there, but it's a little bit better. It actually looks pretty cool. I think that would look just fine on a sampler. Now, you can also do 6, and 6 strands will get you even more coverage. It may cover the whole thing. I'm just going to do 4. We typically don't do 6 unless you really want to, but I would suggest if you decide you want to do 6, like I did with the 4, separate all of them first. Don't just pull your strand out, you know, don't just take, you know, don't just pull it out like this and then, all right, I'm ready to go. I would not do that. Separate all of them first. That kind of fluffs them out and it should give you more coverage that way rather than being all strung tightly together. You're loosening them up, and when you loosen up those strands, then it's going to make it a little bit easier to get the coverage that you want. Okay. All right, so that is Aida. So let me pause again. We're going to go to even weave. Okay. All right. This is a 25 count Lugana, which is an even weave. So you can see this is a little different from the Aida. So here's the Aida compared to the even weave. Okay, so you can see the holes are much smaller. This is, if you want to say threads, or I mean squares would be threads, so 14 of these per inch, whereas this is 25 per inch. So you're supposed to go over 2. For the purposes of doing a satin stitch though, I mean, if you decide, because if you just go over 4, it's going to be really small. So we can go over like 8 instead of 4. And it would be the same size, maybe a little bit bigger than this, because this is, the Aida was 14 count. Okay, so I'm going to just pick a hole right there. And then let me carefully turn it over so I can catch it. Okay, so I'm going to go up 8 on this one. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 right there. Pull it through gently, flip it over. I'm going to put my needle through my loop there because I did a loop start. And there's the first one. Now, remember with our rule, we're not going back and forth, so I'm going to go back down to the hole that's right beside the first one I came through on the bottom. Okay, careful of my tension. Then I'm going to come up to the top, and I'm going to gently pull it through. We're going to do 5 of these, so come back down to the bottom. Go back to the top. Satin stitch is as easy as that. That's all you have to do. Just watch your tension as you're doing this. The holes look a lot bigger in the camera than they actually do in person. Although some pulling is expected. Okay, now we actually have some pretty good coverage there, don't we? That looks more like what we would consider a typical satin stitch, where the stitches are lying side by side and you can't see fabric through them. Okay, so now we're going to try 4 strands because this is pretty good coverage, but let's try, actually, I'll tell you what, let's try 3 strands and see what that does. All right, so now I have my needle threaded with this, it would be 3 strands. Okay, so I'm going to move over just a little bit, and I'm going to start here in this hole. And now, a lot more to work with here, so I'm just going to catch my tail. I'm just going to hold it right there. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, so make sure I'm lined up in the right line there. Okay, so I'm going to go straight to the top. And just have to pull it through a little bit. And I'm going to come back down to the bottom. Sometimes you have to kind of smooth it out as you go. Okay. So with 3 strands, it's easy for it to kind of get jumbled. So I'm just going to take my finger. I'm just going to kind of smooth it out where the strands are more they're lined up together. Make it a little bit easier. Okay, same thing. Going from bottom to top, bottom to top. Pulling it through. And I separated all of my strands before I threaded my needle. Okay, there's 3. There's 4. And 1 more. And there's 5. Okay. All right. So this is 2 strands right here. Camera's shaking a lot, sorry. 2 strands, and then there's 3 strands here. But as I'm looking at it, I actually like the look of the 2 strands. I think it's smoother, and you're still getting a lot of coverage. Now you can go with 3. 3's a little thicker, and as long as you're really careful and you keep your strands really smooth, then you should be okay. Now, I will tell you, people who do the satin stitch a lot, they say there are a lot of nuances to actually doing the satin stitch correctly. That's not the purpose of my video today. It's to simply show you how to do the satin stitch. And then if you really want to get into the woods, so to speak, about really executing the satin stitch, I guess properly might be the word, I'm not sure. Then there are other videos out there where they show you different ways to really make sure that your satin stitch is smooth, because you want to make sure you have the right tension on it, because if you pull it too tightly, it's not going to look good. If your threads are really loose, it's not going to look great. Now, can you do it that way? Sure, you can do it any way you want to, but it just won't look as good. Okay, so now we're going to try it on linen. Okay, this is a linen, and so let me pull out the even weave here just to show you this. Okay, so this is a 25 count Lugana, and this is a 32 count linen. Okay, so you can see that the Lugana, it's very, very even. And then with the linen, you've got some slubs in there. And this one's not bad, but let's see, let me get my needle and I'll show you a little bit better. If you're not as familiar with linen, you're going to find like here's a little slub. It's a little thicker than some of the other ones, and you're going to see several of these, and that's just because of the fabric that is used to make linen, and that's just the nature of it. This is the reason some people, and this one's not bad. This piece of linen is not bad at all, but it's a different feel to stitch on it, just because of the way the holes are. It's not quite as even. And this is really why some people just don't feel comfortable stitching on linen at all. Some people only want to stitch on linen because they like the look of it. I will stitch on linen. In fact, I purposely bought this piece because I like the color, which the color is not showing through on this at all. I'm hoping it'll show through when the actual video shows. But this is a really pretty color. Actually, it's not, kind of looks green in the screen right now, but it's a very aqua like blue color, and it's mottled. So I like linen. I prefer even weave. I actually like the look of even weave a little bit better. I just think it's got a cleaner look. But if I'm doing especially a primitive sampler, I would probably go with a linen because I just think it would look better on a linen. So, you know, it's just personal taste. But I want you to see what a satin stitch would look like on linen as well as on these other fabrics, and then we'll compare them. So the pink will show up enough on this bright color. So what I did, but since I still had a lot of thread left from the 3 strands, I'm going to start with the 3 strands first. And it's the same thing. You stitch on linen exactly the same way as you do on even weave. If you can stitch on even weave, you can stitch on linen. Some people are just disturbed because some slubs, like these thicknesses that you see, some of them can be really large and it'll make your stitches uneven because you just stitch right over them. But it'll make your stitches uneven. Some people are bothered by that. So if you're bothered enough, just don't stitch on linen because you're going to have slubs in there. All right, so I'm just going to pick a spot here. Okay, so there I am. And pull my thread through. Just hang on to that. Okay, so this one's a 32 count, but I'm still going to go up. I'm going to go up 8 instead of 4. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I think that's 8. Woo! That is hard to see after that 25 count. This one's like, oh my gosh, I can't see. Okay, now I'm going to come back down to the next hole. Now these holes are closer together because it's 32 count. So it's a higher count. So we'll see how this goes. And then come up to the next hole. And then go back down. The next one. And then come back down. Go up to the next one. My eyes are not adjusting well. Okay, I think I missed a hole there. I think I'm off. But anyway, I'm kind of glad I did that so that you can see, and the holes are stretching a little bit, but let's see. Let me take it out of the camera and see if I can see. Yeah, I think I skipped a hole. So, yeah, because my eyes have not adjusted to the smaller holes. But you can see what happens if you're off by a hole. It's going to make your satin stitch look a little wonky. So you would need to definitely, if you're doing a sampler or something, I would definitely go back and redo this. Okay, but that gives you an idea of what that looks like. Now, personally, I don't think I care for the 3 strands. I'm going to try 2 on this and see if that's a little bit better. The 3, they're flat. They're not all twisty, but I don't know. So, but again, that's like personal taste. So let me try 2 and we'll see what that looks like. Okay, we're ready for 2. So let's see if I can actually find the holes a little bit easier this time. All right, there we go. Okay, let's see if I can do this and look at it with my bare eyes and not through the camera, and still keep it in front of the camera so you can see. Okay, so there's one. I'm going to try to do this a little more carefully. Okay, and you know, sometimes if it's like a little wonky, just May have to take your needle and just kind of move it a little bit. Okay, there's 2. And all right, don't miss a hole here. There's 3. And there's 4. And then, come on. Come on, you can do it. Okay, so there's that one. Ah, got it. Okay. There's 5. Okay. So I didn't secure this, and that's why that one's coming loose, so that's okay. But there's 3 strands and then 2 strands. I'll tell you what, I actually think the 2 strands look better. It's like the 3 wants to clump up into one bigger strand rather than being, you know, separated out enough where they have good coverage. I like the 2 better. I think it looks better. This looks more like what a satin stitch should be right there. Okay, that notwithstanding, I mean, you can still tell. Okay, so now the next part, we're going to put all 3 together and compare them. All right, I have placed the pieces together side by side. All right, so this over here on the left is a 14 count Aida. 2 strands, 4 strands, okay? This is a 25 count Lugana, which is an even weave. This is 2 strands, 3 strands. And then this is a 32 count linen, Belfast linen. This is 3 strands, and then this is 2 strands. Okay, so here we are. We've got them side by side, and you can see the Aida's doable, and the 4 is a lot better than the 2, but it depends on what look you want. So does your satin stitch have to look exactly like a typical satin stitch? No, you can do whatever you want. You know, you're the boss of your own cross stitch. If this looks really cool to you, depending on what pattern you're doing, go for it, okay? If you want a more traditional looking satin stitch, then here, I don't know, the 2 looks okay. I might go on the even weave, I might go 3 strands. On the linen, I actually, now I was off by, you know, I missed one of the holes. But still, even with that, even if I hadn't missed, I don't know, I like the look of the 2 strands better, but that's just me. Now, if you're not sure what you like, well, stitch a little bit. Stitch, you know, 4 or 5 stitches and just experiment a little bit. See what you like. I did these in the corner because I'm going to remove this because I haven't used this fabric yet. I'm going to remove this. This is just a scrap piece. So I'm just going to pull these back out so that I can use it for other things. But just use a corner. You know, I just came up in the corner and I experimented a little bit. So, you know, it's always fun to experiment and see what you like best. All right, I hope that this was helpful to you, and I hope that this has encouraged you maybe to try the satin stitch on one of your patterns. So be creative, be blessed, and I will see you all later. Bye.